This video is for you if you have ever read a horoscope and you understood, yes, what the terms meant because you're a little further along on your astrology journey, but sometimes they leave you asking, why? What exactly do you mean by that? Why would you say that? If you're a person who reads horoscopes and has follow-up questions, I think this video is going to be really useful for you. Let's get into it. Hi, Cosmic Cuties. It is your friendo, the Lady Ms. Vagina Jenkins, Black Queer Autistic artist and astrologer. And this week's video is a video that I've actually made a number of times before, and it's meant to be a concise-ish guide to understanding transits and how to apply them specifically to your chart. Because ultimately, when you're reading horoscopes in major periodicals or in other media, what you are experiencing is a sort of mini transit reading or transit consultation. They're talking about what's happening in the sky and how it might affect you, but they don't know all the details of your chart like you do. And I really feel like if you had some tools and some systems, you could probably do the exact same thing for yourself. So let's use the example of the upcoming Mercury retrograde to talk about ways, systems, guidelines that you can use to figure out how any given transit will affect you and your unique astrology chart. So we're going to go big picture to detailed picture. So big picture, first thing I want you to do is understand what the transit theoretically means. Okay, Mercury is retrograding in Leo from 15 degrees to 4 degrees. Let's talk about what that might mean theoretically. Bigger unit, Leo. I definitely think of that as the fixed fire energy. Fire energy, generally speaking, is that energy of the spark and being moved by the spark, the excitement, the passion for a thing. Not necessarily the obligation, the duty, the responsibility, but what I feel drawn to because it feels like following a light, a spark. And so there are different versions of fire. There's the cardinal fire, which is Aries. There's the mutable fire, which is Sagittarius. But fixed fire is Leo. Leo is the energy of the sun, the warmth, the light, the spark that we can always count on. It is always there, shining and taking up space and being seen, but also warming us and reflecting that light on us. So that's the kind of energy that I would expect from any kind of Leo transit. When I think about parts of the body and the way that Leo is known as the heart center in medical astrology, I want to apply some of that knowledge about Leo. I know Leo to be about creativity and self-expression, medicine of the light, finding the light, standing in the light, embracing the light. Okay, so that is everything about Leo. Now let's think about what Mercury's medicine is about. When I think about Mercury, I think about how we are trying to connect to each other through the sharing of ideas. So Mercury is very much about communications, Mercury the messenger, right? So communications like the things that we write, the speeches that we make, the conversations that we have, the things that we read, the media that we consume, the way that our brain works, but also our brain is the seat of our nervous system. So how does our nervous system work? Those are all sorts of mercurial ideas, mercurial vibes. And so when I'm thinking about how Mercury in Leo might work, I think about how we might connect to others through ideas because it makes us feel affirmed. It makes us feel seen. It gives us a sense of warmth and it touches our hearts in some way to use words as a way to connect with each other. So if connecting to people through ideas, words, writing, that kind of thing makes you feel good, is this the energy of someone who is just like a natural storyteller or naturally charismatic in some kind of way? Leo is the energy of creativity, and we're talking about Mercury in Leo. Do they have a flair for sort of dramatic forms of communication? And then too, because it is a fixed sign, are there ways in which this person's ideas might not be so flexible and they could somehow be stuck or stubborn in their ideas or the ways that they think about the world? And then the last piece, we're having a Mercury in retrograde. And anytime a planet is retrograde, it gives us an opportunity to pause and revisit that particular planetary lesson. So revisiting, reconsidering, revising, editing. These are the sorts of things that might happen under a retrograde. We get an opportunity to learn a lesson for another time or another cycle or another iteration of the same lesson, right? And then specifically with a Mercury retrograde, we get to look at the ways our ideas, the things that we have been thinking about and considering, the things that we have written, the things that we have said, and what we might change about them, how we might revise them going forward, right? These are sort of the things that Mercury retrogrades generally offer us. And then combining what Mercury in Leo and Mercury retrograde are about, I wonder about the experience of Mercury retrograde Mercury's retrograde through Leo and what that might teach us about reconsidering ideas in the Leo house of our chart. Or could it be about the experience of reconsidering some creativity or self-expression or forms of self-expression you've been engaging in? Could it just be a general experience of reevaluating what it is that you are seen, known, and celebrated for, and deciding where, when, how you might like to tweak that? So many possibilities. So that's step one, having a theoretical understanding of any particular transit. Now we want to pull up an actual transit chart to see exactly what's going on in the sky. Okay, so this is the chart of the Mercury retrograde moment, and we can use this moment to figure out, okay, how might the Mercury retrograde affect us? So, steps. I would look, again, bigger picture to smaller picture. What's happening in the sky first and foremost. And then we'll look at what's happening in the sky against your chart. But let's establish what's happening in the sky. First and foremost, let's find the moment. Here it is, Mercury retrograding, 15 degrees, 33 minutes of Leo. This is, of course, from the perspective of where I live on the West Coast. This is 9:45 a.m. on Friday, July 18th. Your mileage may vary based on your location, so make sure you look up the chart according to the time in your time zone. At any rate, here it is, Mercury retrograde, 15 degrees. The first thing I want to see is, okay, what planets are involved in this Mercury retrograde? Is there anything directly next to it? I don't see anything directly next to Mercury. Okay, well, we see that it's at 15 degrees of Leo, which is a fixed sign. Do we see anything happening in other fixed signs? So that's Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, also around the 15 degree mark. I'm checking Taurus, nothing around 15 degrees. I would even accept anything from like 12 to 17 degrees here. Anything in Scorpio around 15 degrees? No. Anything around 15 degrees in Aquarius? No. Okay. Good to know. Anything around 15 degrees of any sign? The first thing that jumps out is this Venus in Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury. Very telling, interesting connection there, Mercury. But yeah, Venus in Gemini at 15 degrees is making a sextile, as denoted by this dark blue line here. So they're sitting 60 degrees from each other, and that is a supportive relationship. Not the most supportive relationship, but they are, in fact, trying to support each other. So what about revisiting some of the creativity that you have been doing or whatever's happening in your Leo house in your chart. What about revisiting those ideas will also support your ability to attract things using your voice, your words, your thoughts, your mercurial sorts of things. That's an interesting thing to think about. So yes to that sextile. I also see that we have Mars in Virgo at 18 degrees. And so it's not necessarily making a strong aspect, but it is making a semi-sextile because it's 30 degrees from this Mercury retrograde moment. And so, yeah, there's not a line connecting the two, but I'm going to note it in my brain that that is also part of the relationship, and how interesting it is that Virgo is also a Mercury ruled sign. And so how it means that we might be supported in the ways that we are driven to pursue information that will practically improve our lives, that kind of Virgo energy. So all of that is tied up in this particular transit. Any other planetary placements around that 15 degrees? I don't see anything. So yeah. All right, good to know that those planetary placements are involved. I'm going to note them as part of the picture too, because the third part is coming up where I look at my chart. And the first thing that I'm going to do is the exact same thing. Do I have any planetary placements in my chart around 15 degrees of Leo, that Mercury retrograde moment? If I do, I know that they are part of this story. Then the second thing that I would look at, I would cast my net a little wider. Do I have anything at 15 or around 15 degrees of fixed signs like Scorpio, Taurus, or Aquarius? And if I do, I know that those will be part of this Mercury retrograde story. And I also will note that they are in challenging aspect, because if it was a planetary placement in your chart in Aquarius, it would be directly opposing the transiting Mercury retrograde moment. If you had something around 15 degrees of Taurus or Scorpio, it would be squaring the Mercury retrograde in Leo moment. So that's something to make a note of as well. And you decide on your own arc. I like somewhere around 5 degrees, and so that's why I keep saying anywhere from 12 to 17 degrees if the moment is actually happening at 15. So, you know, split the difference. You figure out your own orb, I guess is what I'm saying. And then casting an even wider net. Do you have any planetary placements around 15 degrees of any sign? And then how will that be interacting? Will it be a positive interaction like a trine? So maybe something in another fire sign like Aries and Sagittarius? Or will it be something that is challenging like those squares and oppositions we just talked about? Or something positive and affirming, but not as positive and affirming and helpful as the trine? Would it be something like something happening in Gemini? Since Gemini would be an air sign that supports fire. And so that's or Libra, also an air sign that would support this fire aspect. So yeah, look for all of those sorts of planetary placements in your chart, and then start to break those down the same way that we did the Leo Mercury placement. Okay, so what is the biggest unit? Leo. How is that happening in your chart? Oh, it's in my 5th house of creativity, self-expression, play, hobbies, that kind of thing. So then could the Mercury retrograde moment be asking me to reconsider my thoughts about those particular things? Perhaps. I have been thinking about picking up painting again. Okay, let's explore some ideas related to that. And then the same thing, you want to look for the planetary placements in your chart. You see your Mars is exactly conjunct this transit. You have a natal Mars in Leo, a drive and an excitement and a passion to pursue all the kinds of Leo 5th house related things. And so is this Mercury retrograde moment an opportunity to reconnect to that sense of passion? And is it asking you to do so? And then because it's a fire sign, how will you subsequently action it? So yeah, those are some of my ideas about how you might break down any particular transit. I'm also open to and entertaining of questions about, if you have any questions about this particular transit, this Mercury retrograde moment happening on Friday, July 18th, and how it might affect your chart. If you do, put those questions in the comments because I am here for you. Once again, just to review ideas, what I would say is, okay, interpreting a transit might be a 3-step process. 1, understanding the transit ideologically. What is this transit about? 2, looking at a transit chart of just what's happening into the sky to understand, okay, who all is involved in this transit? And then 3, with that knowledge of what you have going on in the sky, comparing it to what you have going on in your natal chart. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm always down to answer them, because this is really important work for me. I know I say it all the time, but I feel like this is what I'm meant to do in terms of the service that I can offer the world. So I know that sounded really dramatic and woo, but ask questions if you have them, please. Okay, great. Speaking of the work and how you can also support the work, please consider becoming a member of this channel. Membership in this channel starts at $3.99 a month, and you get really cool perks like custom emojis and loyalty badges. You also get to see content before it comes out to the public, or if that exceeds your capacity, I absolutely understand. Please instead consider doing a one-time tip via the thanks button below. And if neither of those financial options of support feel doable for you in this moment, please know that I understand, and that I also very much appreciate when you comment, when you like, when you share my work to your friends, fam, networks, and that is invaluable support as well. So yeah, those are some ways in which you can support me in continuing to do this work. As always, thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you for making time for queer astrology. Bye.